Hey, I'm Senator James Lankford. It's really an honor to get a chance to be able to visit with you as we release our 4th edition of Federal Fumbles. Federal Fumbles is something we do every single year to be able to look at the waste and inefficiency in government, but also regulatory issues, things that government's doing that they shouldn't do, or things that government is not doing that they should do. And then we also try to look at how can we improve the system for the American taxpayer. We do this as an exercise in our office every single year, and we think about it all year long for a couple of reasons. One is I want our team to constantly be thinking about how can we fix inefficiencies in the federal government? What can we do to make things better for the taxpayer, for Oklahomans in particular, and obviously all Americans? What do we need to do better? Working with every single agency. We build the list as we work through the year, but this is not just a list we do to just build a list. These are the to-do list things that we do as a team. We also release this out to other offices to say, have you considered thinking about some of these things as problems and as solutions, and to the agencies, and obviously to the American people as well, to say somebody's working on this. We're interested in your ideas. Some of these things are things that people contacted us and said, hey, have you taken a look at? And we took some time to be able to go research it and chase it down. And other things that we found that we thought the American people would want to see. With $22 trillion in total debt now as a nation, we know for certain we're not going to get out of this without real economic growth as a nation and without dealing with our debt and deficit by being more careful in our spending. We do spend things as a government. It's not that we don't need a government. We do need a good government. We just need an efficient government. That's what we're trying to do with this. If you want to be able to know all the information about this, you can go to our website at lankford.senate.gov, lankford.senate.gov, and you can download the whole document or just be able to flip through it page by page. Now, we broke it up into several different headings, and we want to be able to give highlights to it, but quite frankly, we kicked off this year as we thought would be appropriate with the government shutdown, and trying to say we lost a lot of money and a lot of time through the government shutdown. It was not only inefficient and wasteful in the process, but at the end of the day, there were ways that we could have avoided it. We started working last year on trying to avoid government shutdowns by putting out a very simple proposal. If you get to the end of a budget year and the budget work is not done, Congress and the White House are still negotiating, which is going to happen over and over again, then you hold the American people harmless, you hold federal workers harmless, you continue at last year's spending, but what happens instead is the White House staff, members of Congress, and our staff cannot travel at all, and you have to stay in Washington, D.C. with what's called a mandatory quorum call, and it's technical, but everybody's got to be able to stay here until you keep going. It's the basic thing that everybody does at work. You can't leave until the work is actually done for most people, and so you've got to stay until your work is done. Congress doesn't do that. In fact, we got to the end of our budget year in December, and after a couple of days, everybody just left and went for Christmas, but the shutdown was already on. We should have stayed to be able to work through that. And quite frankly, I think the shutdown would have been much shorter and would have just had the effect on Congress if we'd have just stayed until the work is done. There's also changes we can do in the Budget Committee. There's changes that we can do in other committees in our communication and some structural things. We tried to lay all these things out to say, let's have the fight on policy issues. We're going to have policy differences as we did during the shutdown, but let's make sure federal workers and the American people are held harmless in the process. We brought up an issue this time about a lands package that just came through. We have the way the federal government's buying more land. They're adding it to national parks, or adding it to all kinds of places. Sure, that's fine, but we're not maintaining what we have. We have $18 billion in backlog of deferred maintenance on federal lands around the country, including through the latest piece that just came through. We presented a solution to that in December. We want to also lay that out to the American people to say, here's a way to be able to fix the backlog without actually adding to more debt. We have a proposal we call the taxpayer's right to know. We tried to hammer this home over and over again. In fact, last year in the House of Representatives, this proposal passed unanimously and then got blocked in the United States Senate. It's a simple way to be able to say, we need a list of every government program that's out there. If you as the taxpayer wanted to be able to find out what are the government programs on any issue and how many agencies do it, you couldn't get that information. You should be able to Google it and be able to pull it up immediately to be able to get that information, but you can't. So we want to be able to create a list of every government program, what agencies they're in, how they're evaluated, if they're evaluated at all, and how much you spend on it. It's a simple, straightforward transparency proposal to be able to allow everybody across the country to be able to see what we do, how we do it, and hopefully to be more efficient in it. We have the same kind of proposal in a proposal called the GREAT Act. It also passed the House of Representatives and got stuck in the Senate. but it exposes how we do grants and how that grant money goes out. Now, as we've outlined in several of our federal fumbles in the past, a lot of frustration with some of the grants that have gone out. We list some more of those this time as well. For instance, there's a grant that went out last year on studying Russian wines of the Tsars and of the Soviet era. Yes, your federal taxpayers paid for a study of Russian wines and their effect. I have no idea why the taxpayers should have to pay for that, but you did. And we outlined several of the grants that are out there that said, okay, yes, we're going to make grants as a government, but let's make sure they're in our national interest, they're in our national security, they're helping build our economy, not a Russian economy, and that we actually can justify the different grants that are out there. We'll detail a lot of those things out there. We have a Oklahoma-specific focus. The Muskogee VA and some of the work that they've done, we did what was called the Forever GI Bill, where we gave $30 million to help do an IT upgrade for that area, and we can't figure out where that money went because they're still struggling with the IT at the Muskogee VA Service Center. There's some great folks there that are doing a great job that are stuck with bad technology after Congress allocated the funds, and so we help lay that out. We also struggle with some things like federal hiring. It takes over 100 days to be able to hire federal employees in several places. We've got to be able to fix that because no one wants to be able to apply for a job and then take 100 days to go through the process. We don't just talk about the bad though, we also talk about the good. And we try to lay out the areas that we've actually made progress. We outlined a human trafficking issue that we need to address as a nation on trying to protect people in human trafficking. That's something that Congress actually addressed, actually passed last year, and we think will be a significant shift in human trafficking in the United States. We outlined and brought up the issue of Kaspersky. It's a virus protection software that's run by the Russians that's actually getting all kinds of information and taking it to Russia, and it was actually on the list for the federal government of some of the software we were using on federal computers, this Russian software. We exposed it in the federal fumbles. Over the past year, that has been eliminated from federal computers all over the United States government. We highlighted an issue, if you can believe it, with bad driving among USDA and some of the food inspectors. 35% of all the vehicles on the road that are federal vehicles are from this USDA food inspection group, but 55% of the complaints are out there. We found out none of those complaints are even being evaluated. You know, if you gather data, you should actually use data. It is now being evaluated and it's now being addressed because we highlighted it on federal fumbles. We also highlighted things like the Lifeline proposal, the free cell phone, those tents that are all over the place. We highlighted that on the federal fumbles. We've now worked with the FCC, and if you drive around and look, there's not near as many of those free cell phone tents out there anymore because we're actually addressing that in policy. It's not that we don't want people to have a safety net to be able to have access to call emergency, but one household shouldn't have 8 of them, and there shouldn't be just a free giveaway. We're fixing those issues now. So there are some things that we've been able to fix and see some progress on. We put this list out to hopefully see progress on these things in the future as well. Track us on this. We'll put out posts on social media on it. You can obviously download it at lankford.senate.gov. We're hoping to be able to put out a to-do list and to be able to expose the things that need to be done soon. Still working on some of the undone things from previous years, and we'll keep working on the next things in the days ahead. God bless you. Thanks. And give us your feedback in the days ahead and your ideas where you see areas where the federal government can improve service to you.